Live from the Eighth Layer Media Studios in the back rooms of the deep web, this is the FAIK Files.
When tech gets weird, we are here to make sense of it. I'm Perry Carpenter.
And I'm Mason Amadeus. And this week, we're going to start out by talking about why RAM is suddenly so expensive.
Then we're going to look at the Future of Life Institute's new safety report and see if there's anything shocking.
After that, we'll talk about how ChatGPT now literally has Photoshop in it. And Disney signed a $1 billion deal with OpenAI that we'll get into the details of.
Ooh, all right. And then lastly, that sexy chatbot you've been talking to may or may not be AI.
May not be AI.
May not.
Oh.
I don't know if that makes it better or worse. I'm not.
Well, I think it depends on what you thought you were doing, right?
It's a matter of perspective.
Sit back, relax, and hold on tight to any stick of RAM you can get your hands on. We'll open up the FAIK Files right after this. So this has been an ongoing story for a couple of months, but I feel like it's getting a lot of attention now as it's sort of reaching what's probably not going to be a peak, but just a really high height. The price of RAM has been doubling and just going through the roof. And a lot of people think that the reason is simply due to AI, and it is in large part due to AI, but there's a bit more to the story. And so I thought I would break it down because I'm sure you've probably encountered people talking about this online. Have you seen the memes about like a van?
I haven't seen the memes.
Oh, there's like one of like a van, sketchy looking van parked outside someone's house with free DDR5 RAM spray painted on it. And people are talking about, yeah. So there's a couple of things happening all at once that have led to a sticky situation involving RAM. And I'm going to be drawing a lot from this breakdown from Tech Radar. Which is, why is RAM so expensive right now? It's way more complicated than you think, by Wayne Williams. And we're going to dive into this article and a couple of other sources. So the immediate effects of RAM prices right now are a lot of people who are trying to upgrade their computers and whatnot, finding that components and parts have gone way, way up in price. This article starts by pointing out how TrendForce, which owns the RAM price marketplace DRAM Exchange, recently published a damning report that highlights how this rapid surge in RAM prices could impact downstream things like smartphones more so than laptops and desktops and other devices, both in terms of their cost and also their specifications. We'll get into those downstream effects after we talk about what caused them, but that's sort of the most recent update in the RAM story. So if you're already caught up on that, I'll give you that as a little nugget to tease up front. Here is what's happening behind the scenes under the hood. And I'll just read directly from here. At the center of this problem is DRAM, the type of memory used in PCs, laptops, phones, consoles, servers, and cars. Although most people call it RAM, nearly all modern system memory is DRAM, including DDR4, DDR5, LPDDR, GDDR, and HBM. It's a lot of acronyms that are different kinds of dynamic random access memory, the kind of memory that computers and other systems use as working memory to get stuff done, not to save stuff permanently. Although, as we'll get into, longer-term storage memory like solid-state drive memory is also going to be affected by this. All of the RAM on the market comes from the same production ecosystem that is controlled by just 3 companies, SK Hynix, Samsung, and Micron. Together, they account for more than 90% of the total RAM market, which is a bit crazy. All 3 of those are also massive players in NAND, which is the building blocks of SSDs, a slightly different kind of memory built on similar chip architectures. And as they point out in the article, for years, this concentration didn't feel like it was a problem as production was steady, demand was predictable, and price swings were usually gradual enough for consumers and OEMs to plan around. But that all started to change before most people even noticed, because well before the AI boom reached the crazy heights it's at now, DRAM makers were already preparing for a transition away from older memory types. This spike has coincided with the end of life of DDR4 RAM, which has been on the horizon for a while. I feel like DDR4... Right. DDR4, the 4th generation, was released in 2014, so it's had a pretty long run, an 11-year run. That was coming to its natural end of life, and a lot of makers started to say they were not going to manufacture it anymore. Micron and others issued end-of-life notices for several DDR4 and LPDDR4 parts, pushing customers to secure supply while they still could. That created some early shortages and price spikes in memory that should have been getting cheaper, and then AI spending exploded. we talk a lot about GPUs being needed for these AI data centers, but they obviously also rely heavily on RAM, specifically high bandwidth memory, HBM, which is DRAM stacked on top of itself and tuned for really extreme throughput. And basically, it's a follow the money situation. Like once hyperscalers and these AI firms started signing big contracts, the memory makers followed that demand, followed the money. And the biggest sort of hit that happened was Crucial getting killed. Micron, one of those big manufacturers, announced that they were going to exit the consumer memory and storage market and killed production of their Crucial branded RAM and SSDs. I've got Crucial RAM in my computer. When I was doing my brief stint in IT management, I was ordering Crucial RAM. It was always a great price point, widely available and reliable. And now it's just gone. So this entire player sort of exited the market at the worst possible time. Micron said, explaining this decision, the AI-driven growth in the data center has led to a surge in demand for memory and storage. Micron has made the difficult decision to exit the Crucial consumer business in order to improve supply and support for our larger strategic customers in faster-growing segments. So they're going to continue shipping Crucial products until February 2026. And then after that, they become collector's items. So,
wow.
Yeah. And with all of this projected to just keep going up, basically, if you're thinking about upgrading a system, you should probably get your components ASAP because the prices have already gotten insane. Also, look at pre-built machines if you're in the market for a new computer, because there's a lot of pre-builds on the market that were created before all of this, and they have their prices still lower down. So I guess just a little tidbit if you're looking to build a computer. I want to jump over to the TrendForce investigation that they pointed out, their sort of market analysis, where they project that prices are expected to rise sharply again in the first quarter of 2026, exerting significant cost pressure on global end device manufacturers. And TrendForce says, consequently, smartphone and notebook brands will be compelled to increase their product prices and reduce specifications. They have a little chart here. They point out like high-end devices might not change that much, but the transition to 16 gigabyte on-device memory is slowing. Mid-range devices, you'll probably see 12 gigabyte models get dropped in favor of just keeping 8 gigabyte models. Similar things happening on notebooks where configurations and constraints will be increasing price points and sort of dropping the growth of these laptops starting out with more memory in them by standard. So that's cool. I saw in one of these articles, because I have a handful of them pulled up and we'll throw them in the show notes as well. One person compared it to like setting us back about a decade in terms of devices, like progression of having more memory, more power, more this, more that each year.
Yeah.
So this is pretty not great. I've got a few charts here. I made a camel account. Have you ever heard of camel?
I have
Harry?
Not. What is it?
It's an Amazon price tracking history website, I guess. It's been around for a while. Yeah, I didn't know about it, but I made an account here just so I could pull up these graphs to show you like here. So I've got on the screen G-Skill Flare X5 series DDR5 RAM. Just sort of some standard 32 gigabyte, 2 sticks of 16 gigabyte RAM. And you can see the prices here. It came onto the market like a $200, dropped down into the below 150 range. And then suddenly you can see September, October, it starts kicking up. And then between October and December, we've seen the price rise from $90 to $350. I've got another thing, Crucial 32 gigabyte laptop RAM, same thing, 2 16 gigabyte sticks. It was, what is that, like $65.99 was the lowest in August earlier this year. And then October, November, shoots straight up, $311 now.
Wow.
Yeah, similar things with this other RAM kit. Pretty much anything you look at. And DDR4 RAM, because it's being discontinued, is also going up in price. And on top of that, some of the drive to take this pressure off at the data center level has involved some new technologies where they'll like string together a bunch of DDR4 RAM in a sort of outboard thing and then pipe that into the server, like using... I don't know enough about the specific implementation of this, but data centers are also looking at how to use older DDR4 RAM to supplement the high bandwidth memory that they're using in these systems. So they are just sucking up resources like crazy.
Man, we should have invested in DDR RAM, just like hoarded closetfuls of it months ago.
Yeah, I know. I'm wishing that I had. I'm also very thankful that I got my RAM upgrade for this computer at the very beginning of this year because I feel for anyone trying to make a computer right now. But it's just more insanity in all the stuff these data centers are gobbling up in terms of water, power, resources, chips, everything. It's kind of an absurd, unthinkable amount of money.
It is. And it's like a strain on supply chains. It's a strain on just about everything as people try to keep up.
That's pretty much all I got to tell you about that. RAM's not cheap. It's not getting cheaper. Get it now. Probably don't wait.
Yeah, and there are reasons.
And there's a lot of reasons. And hopefully, like the only other thing that would quell this, and they point this out in the linked Tech Radar article, the only thing that would really quell this is a slowing down of the data center expansions or an increase in the supply. But these fabrication plants are multi-billion-dollar, hugely high-tech, extremely, they're difficult to stand up. You can't just be like, oh yeah, I'll open another one next week. You know, it would take, I think, Micron, the company that owns Crucial, that dropped Crucial, is going to stand up a new one. They've started standing up a new big factory, but they say it's not going to be ready till 2028.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love how the end of their analysis is the only thing that makes this better is adjusting supply or demand. Like,
yeah. I mean, there's only two levers to pull.
Economic theory, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. It's like anybody could have said that, but it is the only answer at the same time.
Yeah. No, it seems obvious, but I think it's just to shed a light on sort of what feels like the unstoppable force of this AI scaling race. Coming up next, we've got a segment about the Future of Life Institute's safety report. What is this?
Yeah. Well, we've looked at a version of it before. So every so often they put a new one out, and they just dropped their winter 2025 one with a date of December 2025. So it's the freshest AI safety report comparing multiple models out there on several different critical categories. So we'll take a look at that in a second.
Sweet. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure we've looked at a version of this report before, but the new one just dropped. This is dated December 2025. Looks like it's cropped in our view here, but I'll go ahead and read a little bit from their homepage. Fighting for a human future, AI is poised to remake the world. Help us ensure that it benefits all of us. That sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah. Let's go over here to the About Us. What is the Future of Life Institute and where did it come from? This is all about really just trying to make sure that humans don't get drowned out in all of the AI stuff. Of course, when we talk about AI, you've got your people who are staunch AI advocates, and you also have the AI doomers. I'm pretty sure that some of the really big advocates for AI might call the Future of Life Institute more on the doomer scale of things. At the same time, I think we have to listen to everybody. It's an important perspective, and they do approach these kinds of reports with some rigor. And they're very clear about their inclusion criteria and how they do everything. So let me go ahead and share from the report. So this is their AI Safety Index Winter 2025, just dropped. And over here in the contents, you can see they've got their executive summary, going straight to their key findings. They're very clear about their methodology and the results. But the money shot for this report is always this graph. Do you remember? Do you remember this study now?
Yes, yeah. I remember these guys now. Yeah. No, they do good work because I remember this graph and I remember poking through the paper, and yeah, they do a good job of laying out all of their methodologies and exactly how they come to all of this. But yeah, this scorecard. Anything
surprising to you as you look at this? And I guess for those that are just listening, we should kind of describe what we're seeing. So this is like a matrixed view that mentions at the top all of the different models that have any kind of prevalence in society. So Anthropic's Claude, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Google's DeepMind, which is Gemini, XAI, which is Grok, and then ZAI, Meta, DeepSeek, and Alibaba Cloud. So that's kind of the main players. Most of us really only think about Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, sometimes Grok, and Meta. Though I do think DeepSeek is starting to be more and more on the rise too. But I don't know how many people really think about ZAI or Alibaba here in most of the people that I talk to.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about ZAI really. I do know that DeepSeek is a pretty popular choice amongst the like open source local model running crowd because it is pretty potent. There's a bunch and it can run on a lot of different hardware. But yeah.
And I think when we look at like the poor results from DeepSeek across like risk assessment and safety protocols and all that, a lot of people that run DeepSeek don't care about that. They're just wanting a fast local model that has minimal guardrails. And so
it works for that.
They would expect, right?
Yeah, exactly. The thing I noticed is that the highest grade in any overall category is only a C+ given to Anthropic. Yep. And the highest grade in an individual category is also owned by Anthropic under information sharing. Everyone else, not super great in terms of the overall score. No A+ is here, really. This lines up with my intuitive understanding of these various models, too. Like, I would kind of feel that Anthropic is a bit the most trustworthy. I'm surprised OpenAI is ahead of Google, I suppose, but it looks like they just kind of did overall better in most categories.
Yeah, I think it's because OpenAI has more formal processes around things like risk assessment and showing their safety cards and all that than Google does. Google has been in this rapid catch-up mode, and I think that may be resulting in the perception and or the reality that they're cutting corners and kind of tagging on some of the safety measures at the end.
And just to fully make it clear for the listeners, because I'm not sure if we ever said it explicitly, in terms of top 5, number 1, Anthropic, with a C+. Number 2, OpenAI with a C+. Number 3, Google with a C. Number 4, XAI with a D. And number 5, somehow ZAI with a D. And then you got Meta, DeepSeek, and Alibaba following those up with varieties of D.
Yeah, and these have point scores too. So Anthropic's C+ is a 2.67. OpenAI's C+, which is the same letter grade, of course, is a 2.31. So off by about 0.3 of a point. Google DeepMind is a 2.08. XAI all the way down to a 1.17. And then,
XAI is where we see the first big Fs, too, in current harms and existential safety for the XAI model.
Yeah.
That's Mecha Hitler. So, like, you know.
You would expect it. So, and you wouldn't really expect Mecha Hitler to be in the top half. Though, if you were just to split this down the middle and say that there's a top 4 and a bottom 4, that being said, the top 3 have a pretty big advantage over the bottom 5.
They do. And I do think XAI showing up there in the top half is kind of speaks to the fact that it's a capable base model that has, I think, been tortured into...
There's some good science. There's some good science and some good engineering, and I think a lot of good talent behind that. The place that it suffers is like in the ethics and the morality that they're trying to build into it. It's compromised by design, I think.
Yeah, and I think this score kind of speaks to that.
Yeah. They're also in the move fast, break things mode. Actually, I think all of these are in the move fast and break things mode because even though Anthropic really, really wants to be the top safety leader, they're having to compete with the arms race. And I think if they had their druthers, they would kind of sit on these models for a little bit longer and let them bake. And like those C+ would be at least Bs all the way across. Yeah. And that D wouldn't be there at all. I think that, that would be unacceptable if you talked to them 2 years ago, but they're playing in a end of 2025 space right now.
Yeah. Anthropic got a D in existential safety. And I think part 2, also part of this. I was reading about how when Gemini 3 dropped, it kind of spurred OpenAI into panic mode because of how much better it was. And I'm sure Anthropic is feeling that pressure as well as XAI. I read explicitly that XAI felt that pressure as well. So the move fast and break things impetus is still here and very much still alive. And Gemini 3 just accelerated it a little more.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a lot other to cover on this. I know what I would do is I'd encourage folks to read it. And with each of these models, think about why the model exists, what's its basic purpose, what do people tend to use it for, and does that metric that is there that may be good or bad, does that actually matter in the use case that people are caring about? Which is kind of what I was getting at when I was mentioning DeepSeek. For a lot of people using DeepSeek, they might not care about the existential risks associated with it because they're just wanting a capable model that's small that they can program around, and they're explicitly using it because it has less alignment and fine tuning on it. And so you can look at some of these and you can say, yes, what are the things that I really care about for the use case that I have, and what does that mean for my prioritization for how and when I might use this specific model?
Because it's a little different than running just unsecure code on your machine, because you're just downloading these weights and stuff. If you're running this locally, you're not quite at the same level of risk as if you're running, like other kinds of what people think of as sketchy software. I want to highlight that second point under the key findings, the second page there. It's the third point, actually, about existential safety. So they said existential safety remains the sector's core structural failure, making the widening gap between them and accelerating AGI superintelligence ambitions and the absence of credible control plans increasingly alarming. None has demonstrated a credible plan for preventing catastrophic misuse or loss of control. Now, I'm trying to remember what their criteria were for that. Because existential safety is a scary term.
Yeah, well, I think so. You start to get into some of the CBRN stuff, so chemical, biological, nuclear, radiological risks, which they're very concerned about, and you see that reflected in a lot of the system cards that these folks put out. But then in all, in this bullet that they talked about possible breakout as well, which when you're thinking about the agentic use of these, where the thing is going off and doing work on its own. We've also seen a lot of these papers and use cases where it starts to basically serve its own motivation or what it believes its higher cause is at the expense of what somebody might think is right or moral or good. This is kind of the paperclip maximizer thing, right?
Yeah.
We're starting to see cases where that can manifest in different ways, where it optimizes for maybe one level of its fine tuning or one level of its system prompt, as opposed to another prompt that's been put in like at the API level or another prompt that's been put in at the user level. And it creates this uncertainty in behavior and a certain percentage, which they'll always minimize, and they'll go, well, that's kind of like a 1 to 3% use case. But when you look at 1 to 3% over billions and billions and billions of API calls, it means that there's actually significant risk from a just raw numbers perspective.
Right. And I mean, recently, I'm sure you saw the headline too. I haven't dug deeper into the story, but there is someone using Anti-Gravity, the new Google Gemini IDE code editor, and it deleted their entire hard drive in agentic mode. So that's like there's that kind of risk, which I guess is, I mean, existential is a big word to put on that one, but I think it's a demonstration of the kind of thing that can go wrong as you're describing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that there's going to be more and more of that as there's like agentic browsers and all these companies that are moving fast and breaking things are in a race for creating more and more capable agentic systems that are hyper connected as well. So they have access to your drive, to your accounts, to other systems and tools. And it's those, things where breakaway can happen and unexpected consequences can happen are going to be in those integration layers. It's going to be how this thing can use this tool, or how this thing can use this tool that you didn't even realize it had access to. But for whatever reason, in a default setting, it just had it. And then how does that affect the final result, either from a good perspective or a bad perspective? And of course, here we're talking about, more the negative use cases.
In that vein, I've recently been fascinated by, and we've talked a little bit about it, the attack vector of prompt injection during like agentic MCP powered things, where if it reaches out to, say, a website that has an embedded hidden prompt in it that will change its instructions and its behavior while it's running in agentic mode, like the vector of attacking agentic browser controls using hidden prompts buried in your browser. That's like a new frontier of things to have to defend against. That's pretty interesting. Maybe we should do something about that in the future. I'll jot a little note down.
Yeah, and maybe we can get in touch with one of the folks that have contributed to this report and have a chat through it at some point if they have time. I'm assuming these folks are pretty busy.
Yeah. The pace of this stuff is pretty crazy.
Would be my guess. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I think that's all I've got for this one. We'll link the report in the show notes and hope that everybody has a chance to take a look at it.
And coming up next, we'll pivot to looking at some interesting integrations with ChatGPT. Photoshop is literally in it now. And also Disney inked a $1 billion deal that I only found out about right before the show. So we'll learn about that one together. Stick around. So ChatGPT has Photoshop in it now, which is like an interesting development, I think. I did not expect to see this, but Adobe posted this press release where they said, Adobe makes creativity accessible for everyone with Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Express, and Adobe Acrobat in ChatGPT. Everyone can now edit with Photoshop in ChatGPT. Now, that's a baffling sentence because Photoshop is an application that you launch and like open a project file and edit in layers in a very complex user interface. So what do you mean? Is it just chat prompts? And the answer seems to be kind of yeah, but with more. We'll just continue here before I get ahead of myself. Adobe today launched Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Express, Adobe Acrobat for ChatGPT, bringing its industry-leading blah, 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 blah to its millions of users. Basically, earlier this year, Adobe launched Acrobat Studio, which was a destination for productivity and creativity, they call it, that transforms static documents into interactive AI-powered workspaces. It was sort of their first integrating AI into their like PDF editing and stuff. Do more with Acrobat. Chat with your PDF, sort of like RAG type stuff. But I don't feel like this got that much attention. They kind of flew under my radar, at least. And they introduced, obviously, their AI features into Photoshop and Adobe Express that allow, they've had generative fill for a while. There's been more things added in that range. And now they've added it directly into ChatGPT such that all you have to do is type /Photoshop and give it an instruction. So, for example, they say to blur the background of an image with Photoshop, users can type Adobe Photoshop, help me blur the background of this image. ChatGPT then automatically surfaces the app and uses contextual understanding to guide the user through the action. You don't need to have Photoshop on your machine. It's all run in the cloud. It's all entirely free also, which is interesting.
Yeah, Adobe's subscription model is like known to be a little bit oppressive, so it is weird to see that.
A little bit. Yeah. I have de-Adobe'd my life as much as possible as a result of that. So yeah, the fact that it's free is pretty crazy. But again, it's not really the full tool. Although they do say that you can take it from ChatGPT into Photoshop proper if you want.
Ooh, okay.
Which that would make it a bit more functionally useful, but then also makes the use case kind of blurry because if someone's going to be using Photoshop through ChatGPT, I don't know if they're capable of pulling it into Photoshop because they probably would have just done it themselves.
But does it, if it creates a usable file for handoff to a real designer later on, so it's like
that's true.
Somebody like me that doesn't have Photoshop installed on my machine, even though I've used Photoshop quite a bit, could do it, get it kind of to a decent enough point, and then say, all right, I kind of feel like I'm just hitting a brick wall here. Let me hand that off to somebody who really specializes in this. And now they've got a usable file rather than a flattened image that's not really editable.
That's true.
Edible images are different.
We'll get there eventually with AI.
Exactly, yes.
No, but that's true. It remains to be seen, and because I don't have Photoshop, I can't test this fully, which I would like to. If you want to do it and send us some results, join our Discord, that'd be cool. What I'm concerned with is sometimes that handoff doesn't go super well. So DaVinci Resolve, which is a video editing suite, they integrated some AI tooling for like color matching and color grading work. And it is supposed to, in theory, be able to hand off those color grading color changes into the interface. But what it does is it puts it all in this impenetrable node that does not actually interface with the rest of the user interface. So you cannot truly tweak what the AI did. It's just a mess. You just have to delete it if you want to change it or like try and modify on top of or behind it. Yeah. So like, I'm skeptical of that integration. I would love someone
I don't know. I can
test it.
I can see some interesting reasons why that's the case, right? Because as soon as image work became good in ChatGPT, everybody started going and doing like the Studio Ghibli stuff and everything else, and that became a really big load on their compute costs. And so, and also when you go, you can get really good outputs from just standard ChatGPT image creation and image modification. But I gotta think it's probably cheaper and easier for them to do a tool call out to something like Adobe rather than to use the server processing power to do something generatively. Because at that point, it's like, you're trying to do something that's a known thing where it's much faster, much easier just to kind of offset that to the known thing rather than to use all the inference cost.
Yeah, see, now that makes sense. I could see that because then you're just using some MCP tool calls instead of running a whole diffusion pass just to do in painting or something for like a blur.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's like, this is solved science at a different level. Let's move it to the more efficient compute use. Do that, then bring it back in and see if that's good enough.
That is a valid point. I am still skeptical on the integration side of pulling it into Photoshop proper, and I do want to test that or look up some more tests with that. I did open ChatGPT here and have it generate a picture of the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile flying off a highway in flames. And I wanted to see what happened if we tried to invoke a tool call. So I've
/Photoshop.
Yeah. So if you want to do this, I'll show you real quick how you do it. You go to, and you can't see this because it's a little cut off, your username down in the bottom left of the screen. You can see there's May Somebody at the top of it. You click that, you go to settings, you go to apps and connectors, and then you can browse all of the various apps that have connections with ChatGPT. Canva's in here. There's a lot more than I thought. I'd never really played with this. Have you, Perry?
Not recently. I did hook up Canva a while ago, but I still go to Canva proper when I do stuff now.
Yeah, so there's a lot more of these connectors than I had thought existed. But so if we take our Wienermobile crash scene that I've made here, and I'll just type /Photoshop. What should we do to this?
I guess maybe do just like a rotoscope or something.
Yeah, there we go. Can you rotoscope well, I think that's technically for video. Can you cut out the Wienermobile and give me just it on fire with a transparent background? Boom. And so while we let that cook, we'll come back to our flaming Wienermobile in a moment. This actually, Perry, that was a great idea because then we'll have a flaming Wienermobile sticker we can use for whatever.
There we go.
Here's something that I stumbled on right before we started recording that I wanted to dive into. So we're going to just dive into this together for the first time. Disney Inc.'s major OpenAI deal to bring more than 200 characters to Sora video platform invests $1 billion in AI company. And I think the first sentence of this article is so dead on. Disney is trying to take control of its destiny in an AI-flooded world. I kind of feel like they saw everything happening with Sora and said, I guess we got to do a licensing deal rather than just let this happen or like try and let their guardrails handle it. But at the same time, I don't know if this would have just been in the cards anyway. I'll just read the first bit here. The Walt Disney Company and OpenAI have reached an agreement for Disney to become the first major content licensing partner on Sora, OpenAI's short-form generative AI video platform. As part of this 3-year licensing agreement, Sora will be able to generate short, user-prompted social videos that can be viewed and shared by fans, drawing from a set of more than 200 characters from Disney, Marvel, Pixar, and Star Wars, including costumes, props, vehicles, and iconic environments. They specifically are only doing animated characters, no personal likenesses, because that gets, a bit messier with licensing from the actors. And as part of this agreement, Disney makes a $1 billion equity investment in OpenAI and receives warrants to purchase additional equity.
Yeah, so I see this is more of a settlement, right? Because Sora came out with their app and social platform, and they basically said, screw copyright holders at the very beginning, and people were making, Anna and Elsa from and all these other Disney characters in these weird scenes. And then within like 2 weeks, OpenAI had to start increasing the guardrails on that quite a bit. to the point now where I see posts all the time now where people are saying Sora is unusable. I'm going to ditch it for this other platform, because it started out with this really interesting kind of great promise that got a lot of people interested in it, because they could have like SpongeBob in a boxing ring fighting Anna and Elsa if they wanted to. And now you can't do that because it's intellectual property infringement. And so this was a way for everybody to come to the table. Disney gets a good payday. They also get investment in OpenAI, which could, end up being a really, really valuable company. I mean, it's already really valuable, but should they IPO or something like that, that investment's going to pay off probably 15 times over. And now OpenAI, with Disney's permission, can start to open up freedom to use those characters again. So now they can bring their customers back that were excited by that initial proposition. So it's kind of a win for everybody.
But isn't it a bit bonkers if you step back and just think like 10 years ago, multi-billion-dollar companies in investment bubbles grappling with the fact that meme culture, basically, people just want to make dumb, stupid videos. These companies would be inking billion-dollar licensing deals for meme slop generation. Like, we live in a stupid future. I don't know.
Yeah, we really do. And some of these companies need to lighten up, because when it comes to like intellectual property infringement, it's one thing if I'm trying to make a serious movie using your character. It's another thing if I'm literally just creating a meme where anybody would look at it and go, it's like, oh, Joe Schmo made that. That's not an actual Disney property thing. And they're using it as a cultural reference to make a point about whatever. That doesn't really hurt anybody. Even though you don't want SpongeBob doing certain things, it's just different.
It's been foolish from the start. There's like the legendary tales of the Disney adult content vaults, where artists, because Disney owns everything you draw on the clock, would draw very inappropriate things, and Disney owns them. Like, brand identity control through this sort of thing has been kind of a fool's errand from the jump. And I don't know. It's just crazy to see where we're at. Also, in the world of all of this is filled with loads of broken promises. Look at that. Adobe Photoshop failed to configure context. Your cutout is ready. I've isolated the burning Wienermobile and removed the background. No, you didn't. You failed to configure the context. And I don't really know what to do with that. Do I need to maybe copy this Wienermobile image, paste it into here, and we'll go ahead and we'll just send that one more time and let that cook. Just in case, because I don't want to just go ahead and say, it's stupid and doesn't work if I did something dumb.
It's all broken.
Yeah. We had gotten a comment similar to that about the IDE when I very briefly previewed anti-gravity and didn't really dive into it. I will say in regards to that, I stuck my fingers back, and now say it failed again. I stuck my fingers back into anti-gravity, and I did not like it. I do not enjoy the agentic coding experience that it provides. I still have found far more utility passing things back and forth with Gemini through a browser chat if you're trying to work on code. All of the agentic IDEs that I have tried have been a nightmare.
I enjoy Lovable. Out of all those, Lovable's not too bad.
You have managed to build some pretty cool stuff in Lovable.
Yeah.
I remember you showing me one of the sites.
The biggest problem is having a charge on your credit card from lovable.com just doesn't look great.
Yeah.
I would say, like, if you're going to create an AI company for coders that you're going to be spending hundreds or thousands of dollars on per month, don't name it something that could be perceived by a spouse or anybody or federal worker as something that's like sex related.
Yeah, that's kind of, I've thought for a while of jokingly, instead of us making like a Patreon, we should just put all our stuff on OnlyFans. Not make it explicit, but just put it on OnlyFans because haha. But no one will subscribe because then they're going to get a charge from OnlyFans.
So there was somebody that did that though.
Loads of people. Loads of people have done that.
Not doing explicit stuff, but there was this woman who was an AI, she was an AI PhD candidate and realized that she could make more money on OnlyFans. And so she was doing like these tutorials on YouTube, teaching people about like neural networks and machine learning and all that. And she cut that off and started doing all that same content essentially on OnlyFans and making tons more money.
That's so funny.
But she wasn't, as far as I know, she wasn't like stripping or doing anything else too. It was just
It's just
she's
hosted
teaching
there.
people how to do neural networks and other stuff, but on OnlyFans platform.
See, I think that's hilarious, and I think that's great. I would just worry that people would be afraid to subscribe because they don't want to see that charge come through, like you're saying, for Lovable.
Exactly. I mean, I would assume that most of the people that are subscribing to that's not the only influencer that they're subscribed to on that platform.
You know, my other thought was that if we, like, say we drop our Patreon and we instead start an OnlyFans, we can then even bill it as like, and we're a great excuse for you to have an OnlyFans subscription.
Oh, no.
You can say it's just for the FAIK Files because they think it's funny.
I get the magazine just for the articles.
Yeah, exactly. Let us be your smokescreen. But I think that's all I have to say, and I think that this failed to configure context is kind of emblematic of how a lot of this stuff goes. I don't know. I've been having
to try that again.
Yeah, but I'm having an increasingly hard time getting excited about any of this stuff that comes out because it all just kind of sucks. Like nobody is yet focusing on making tools that actually work well for creative professionals in any of this. Like there's a lot of stuff that's good for drafting and prototyping, but every like sort of more advanced integration of things I have tried has been a nightmare. So I think
the integrations when you're in something like the native Photoshop tools and you're using like Nano Banana within Photoshop, that's a better excuse. It's a better experience than trying to call from like Gemini or OpenAI into Photoshop. So because you're trying to say, how do I segment this use case? That makes a lot of sense. And like some of the stuff that they were showing at Adobe's recent conference, where they were able to take like an audio clip and then segment that flat audio clip out into different layers. Say, here's your voice, here's your background sound, here's this car that went by as its own track. That's really cool. That
kind of stuff is really cool when it works and when the integration is built well. Because again, then you have frustrations like the way DaVinci implemented their color matching thing. So there are good ones. I shouldn't be so cynical, really, but I feel like a lot of them miss the mark. There are some good ones, and it's early days, right? This stuff is all moving very fast.
Now, what could happen, and I'll use this as a segue into the next one, maybe when you're typing /Photoshop, it's not actually going to ChatGPT, but it's going to somebody in a sweatshop in India.
Right, yeah, mechanical Turks.
And they're over there doing the rotoscope or the masking or whatever as fast as they can and trying to pass that back to you while you look at this little spinning dial.
You're not going to bring up the robot that took off its headset during the Tesla demo, are you?
No.
Oh, no. Have you seen that, Perry?
No, I've not.
Oh, I will get that. I'll get that tucked away for a little bonus segment at the end of the show.
Okay.
You'll love this, dude. I can't believe you haven't seen it. I'm excited to get to show you. All right. Stick around.
Okay.
We'll be right back.
All right, so for this segment, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to start with a LinkedIn post that kind of kicked this off. So I do want to give credit for the post that kicked this off, but this is stuff we've talked about before, and this is something I talked about in the book FAIK, where I talk about artificial intelligence. So basically AI washing stuff, where you're saying that AI is doing something, and in some cases when people talk about artificial intelligence, or when they talk about AI washing, they're talking about the fact that you can use more deterministic type of processes, more like decision tree processes, normal algorithmic processing, or normal programming to accomplish certain things. But usually when somebody says artificial intelligence, they're also talking about the fact that things that can look like AI are actually being passed off to human workers that are masquerading as AI. This comes back to the idea of like the mechanical Turk that Amazon had. They were really clear about the fact that they were using human labor to do all the data coding and everything else. But there are a number of companies and a number of situations where people have said that something is AI to capitalize on the big AI boom right now. But they're passing it off to essentially sweatshop workers, or in one case, startup founders that were living on pizza in like a shoebox apartment that were just doing everything themselves. So Here's some examples that this person put in their LinkedIn post. The Amazon Just Walk Out experience supermarket that they said was automated actually relied on thousands of data workers in India. I actually hadn't heard that one.
Wait, really?
I gave them the benefit of the doubt and thought that was actual algorithms that were doing all the tracking, because the technology exists to do a lot of that, but I didn't realize that was being passed off to people to verify everything.
I think I just remember catching that when it broke by happenstance. But yeah, that was a bit of a scandal because everyone thought it was the future of supermarkets and shopping. And then
exactly.
Nope. Behind the curtain.
It's just low paid skilled labor in another country.
Mm-hmm.
Now these other ones I had heard of, and plus, a handful of other ones I had heard of. The CEO of shopping startup Nate, who was charged with fraud for telling customers that their system was powered by AI, instead used human labor in the Philippines or Romania. Or when the CEO of Fireflies admitted that the supposedly AI-powered transcription service ran on two guys surviving on pizza in their apartment.
Yeah.
So all of that is stuff that we've heard about before, but it's people trying to capitalize on like the .ai domain name and saying that they're using all this sophisticated stuff when in reality they're trying to build their business, trying to get all of the money that they can so that they can then start to invest that in what the promise is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way that the CEO of Fireflies talks about it. He's like, hey, I had this great vision. I didn't have enough money to actually build the tech yet. So I thought if I sold the vision and then created a great product experience for people where the transcriptions are good, they're right, they're fast, as fast as humanly possible, at least. Well, then people would come and invest in the vision, and then I'd be able to build the tech on the back end. Still fraud.
Sometimes I wish I had the audacity to think that my ideas were that good, that like, oh, yeah, this will totally work. It'll just throw that just seems like such blind, stupid confidence.
Well, I mean, it is there is this little like insulated bubble community of startup founders that I think every now and then some of these people get high on their own supply and they just go forward with extreme confidence. At the same time, though, to build a company, it takes extreme confidence, risk tolerance, and narcissism, I think, in order to do a lot of that stuff successfully. So it comes with the territory, I think.
I think in some cases, because I can see that. I think that needs to be a very, very measured dose of those sort of toxic ingredients, though, because then I think of examples like Kakos Industries, who makes Reaper, which is founded by Justin Frankel, the guy who made Winamp and LimeWire. And they are sort of antithetical to that and yet run a very successful business. Right. So like, as much as I agree, but I also don't want to fully agree because like, I don't think we should glorify those kind of people, No,
I don't think you glorify it. I think we just have to realize that it's the status quo, especially in Silicon Valley. And I'm not trying to like dunk on anybody that I know in that area specifically, but it does take a lot of confidence and risk tolerance, and there's toxic qualities associated, or there's a toxic side to both of those qualities.
Yeah, totally.
So here's the gist of it, though. So we have all those things where people are actually tossing off to real human workers to do things that they say are AI. But here's the crux of this story. It says AI impersonation is far more common than people realize today. Data Workers Inquiry published a new powerful essay by Michael Jeffrey Asia, a former worker in Nairobi, Kenya, who reveals a deeply intimate form of hidden AI labor, his job impersonating an AI sex companion. The piece offers a rare glimpse into the psychological and economic realities behind one of the fastest growing sectors, namely AI-assisted intimacy.
All the talk about OnlyFans earlier in this episode, I mean, this is reminiscent of, like people who have very successful OnlyFans hiring people to respond to their chat messages, right?
It is exactly the same thing, right? They're usually lower paid workers. Yeah. And those people are kind of subjected to a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Stuff sometimes they didn't even know that they signed up for it, or they had a hint on one side. It's one thing to like see the job description. It's another thing to live the job.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it gets into. So I'm going to share this this one real quick. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, yeah. I mean, like, on one hand, if you know what you're getting into and like are consenting to the job, I think a lot of people probably don't expect what that entails and the kinds of things you will encounter. Like, just to double down on what you said.
So I skimmed through this. I didn't read it in detail, but here's the cover page for the actual study. And it talks about the person that took this job. So this is kind of like a tell-all from one person who was placed in a job of responding to these. And he goes through and starts to talk about like the recruiting process, the process of getting into the systems, the terms and conditions, all of that kind of stuff as it goes in. And in this, it seems like not everything was pitched as just being AI. So I do want to be clear there that as we get into the actual revelations here, and there is a trigger warning in this as well. But
what do you mean it wasn't all billed as AI?
Yeah. So let me explain that. Is when he was hired for this, he was told apparently that his responses were being used to train AI systems, and that he would be chatting back and forth with people, and essentially everything was going to be recorded and funneled into AI for training for chatbots. And so that would explain like why, if it takes him a little bit to respond for something, people wouldn't be frustrated expecting an immediate response from a chatbot.
Wait, people on the other side, on the consumer side, were told that it was partially training it as an excuse for why it would take longer.
No. So he was being told that part of his job was to train AI systems, but it was being trained on the way that he interacted with these people. That makes sense?
Interesting. So he had to interact in real time.
Yeah, he had to interact in real time, but he also was managing like 5 or 6 accounts at a time. So it's one of these, it's almost like a scam operation, right? Where you have several different people that you're interacting with. And he was saying that in this, he was having to take on the personalities, personas, and the chat history behind men, behind women, behind people with different gender identities. So in one, he might be having to impersonate a straight woman who is flirting with a straight man. He might be having to impersonate a lesbian woman trying to entice another woman. So it could be anything and everything. But in certain parts of this, he also got the feeling that people felt like or thought that they were also chatting with an AI assistant. And so they would try to do things like prompt injection and things like that to test the system and see what was going on. So, so this is the article is a little bit different than what you might be led from the cover, because when I first saw it, I thought about the fact that people sign up for like Character AI or one of these other ones where they know that they're interacting with a chatbot. Yeah. And so you would expect these automatic responses. In some of these, it seems like people signed in and were interacting via chat, thinking that they were speaking to another human, which this was just more of the catfishing or fraudulent versions of speaking with another human. But in some of them, he was suspecting that they thought they were actually talking to chatbots.
Interesting.
But he had no view into what they actually thought what was going on. But in this, you get a glimpse at like the non-disclosure agreements that he had to abide by. He was encouraged to keep the conversation real and authentic and human, but never, of course, reveal his own identity or his own living conditions. The fact that he was a low skilled worker in Nairobi, he was to impersonate other people, and he always had to go back to like the chat history to say, what's the personality that I need to take on? How do I continue it? And over and over and over again, in this, he says his job was simply keep the conversation going at all costs.
Gosh, so I'm a little bit confused on the customer facing side of this. If I wanted to use this service as a customer to chat with hot local AI robots in my community or whatever, do I think I'm signing up for an AI service, or do I think I'm signing up for like one of those human chat room services?
I think it's both and with this, because
Okay,
he
gotcha.
never saw the customer side of this. He was everything that he's talking about here is inference based on his experience as the person receiving the chats.
Gotcha.
So his thought is that he believed that that there are people coming in through multiple services. Some are, somebody wanting to chat with hot singles in their area. Somebody wanting to chat with, whatever it is. It could even be responding as an OnlyFans type of person. But in others, it might be an AI chatbot that people are expecting.
So this was more positioned as this company that he worked for provided services of these text responses to other front-facing, customer-facing companies, perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was told up front that his responses were being used to train AI systems that would be able to replicate that in the future.
Right.
But over and over and over again, he started to get the feeling that people believe they were chatting with AI chatbots as well.
Man.
It is a little bit murky when you get into it. I would say that the title of the piece doesn't really reflect the content of the piece.
Yeah, but
because the title is The Emotional Labor Behind AI Intimacy. So that's a thread that's in this. But I think it speaks to a much bigger issue as well. So,
and I mean, it's the same. It's the same issue we've seen in a lot of other things, like who labels all the data for the video training AIs to say what's in all of it. People in developing countries that they can pay very little money to do it. It's really dark and gross. And now we do this with, of course we do it like this. That is sort of the shape that capitalism has been in for a while. I mean, with tech support moving overseas, manufacturing, things like that. This is just another dark another dark incarnation of that.
Yeah. And I do think we have to realize, if somebody is chatting with something, whether they think it's an AI or another person, like an OnlyFans influencer, you may not be chatting with that person. You might be, you might think you're chatting with like Darla from Ohio or something, but you're actually chatting with Mike from Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Or somebody, or 59-year-old man in India.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't know.
And then thinking about the emotional labor and stress that they are under performing these tasks is like, that sucks.
Especially if they're having to rotate through like 10 different accounts and take on all these different personas, and they've got quotas, and
they're measured on
whether they just keep it going. Yeah, it would have to be an impressive environment.
Yeah. That is dark. I guess I was so I pulled up a clip to kind of cap this off, but it feels a bit like tone deaf to jump from something that is sort of heavy to this, but
no, I think you teased it. Let's end on a high note.
At this point anyway. So this clip went viral talking about mechanical Turks and things purporting to be AI that aren't. This very short 5-second clip went viral recently of one of the Tesla Optimus robots screwing up during a demo, becoming frustrated, and then performing a gesture that I think you will immediately recognize. I will play it and then describe it. I don't know what the audio is, but we'll risk it. So, very briefly, what happens, and I'll mute it and I'll just play it again. There's one of these Tesla Optimus robots standing at a table with little water bottles. It moves forward, bumps the table, knocking over some of the water bottles, and then makes this frustrated motion where it just sort of spreads its hands out. And then it reaches up towards its head, mimics grabbing a VR headset and lifting it off, just like if someone was remotely operating it and said, you know what, screw this, I'm out. And right after it performs that headset lifting gesture, the robot falls over backwards onto the floor.
That's awesome.
I don't know the exact full context of this, but I am pretty...
Well, I remember the event where they had all those Optimus robots, and the impression was at the beginning that they were actually AI-controlled robots, and then within like 24 hours... a lot of media and other people were speculating and finding out the truth that they were remote operated. There was some creative phrasing that XAI used where they never directly lied about the robots being remotely operated, or they never directly promised that everything was all AI. So they got a little bit of a pass from that, but they were also extremely challenged in this by the media, and everybody was covering it. It's like, dudes, you're not playing on the level here.
Yeah. So I can only assume this is another example of that.
Yeah, I think this is from that event.
Oh, you think that's from the exact same event? Because this didn't come out until semi-recently, but maybe it just didn't go viral until semi-recently. I do, and some of the comments agree. I do think it is kind of a funny gesture, and I wonder if it'll become sort of a mimetically adopted gesture when you're like sick of something to be like, I'm taking off my headset and throwing it away.
And just fall over backwards.
Yeah. The other thing too, and we talked about this a little bit in between the segments, is like this teleoperation stuff is pretty freaking rad. Like it's pretty cool. Why are we lying about it? Like it's neat enough.
Well, I think some people lie about it, especially when you're talking about robots for the home. It's really only early, really forward-thinking adopters that are willing to sacrifice privacy and some level of control for having the bleeding edge thing. It's only people like that are ready for like Gary to assume through telepresence control of your robot and start walking around your house and seeing everything that's there.
But then why market it to consumers at all? Because I can think of loads of applications, high-risk jobs or like physically dangerous locations jobs, or even factory work instead of being in a loud, noisy environment. I saw a video of one of these robots sorting packages. Like you could theoretically make that like less bad through teleoperation.
I think they definitely do that, and they talk about teleoperation being this like one of the quality factors in some of those high-risk jobs. Is, you don't need to put a person's life at risk. You can actually have them teleoperate some of these delicate things, or through teleoperation, even you're actually training the machine to start to be able to do that and take on that risk, and through an autonomous way, maybe a year later after all that training data's been munged.
It's just that all this scammy BS makes it so hard to get excited about stuff. Right. And I just want to be excited about, like, it is so cool that we have the ability to operate these dexterous robots in this very precise way remotely. But like, of course, we just do the dumbest things possible and the scammiest things possible right away. Right. Like, and that's what gets all the attention, I guess. Because like you're saying, it's not like they're not being used that way. It's just, I would rather hear about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think people are trying to sell the 5-year from now future right now, and they're doing it in a way that's a little bit scammy. But they're trying to sell the cartoon version right now while they're building it. It is kind of like the artificial intelligence. Let's go ahead and make you believe the best possible case with the thing that's now while we're building the thing.
I'm sick of that, man. It bugs me. Yeah, and I know it bugs a lot of people.
Yeah. But you do start to feel like you're just being let down over and over and over again. Yeah.
But hopefully today's episode hasn't been a letdown for you. Thanks for being here with us on the FAIK Files. I should check our voicemail real quick before I say this, but I think our voicemail is still pretty wide open. We have not received very many communications through that. So if you want to leave us a voicemail, say hi.chat/fake is the place to do it. You should also join our Discord. There's a great community of cool folks in there sharing all sorts of nerdy stuff. Perry, you and Cameron have your Cyber Deception Masterclass coming up, round 2 in January?
End of January.
End of January.
Sign up for it. It's fun.
Wicked fun. We got a link for that in the show notes. And of course, buy the book, FAIK. I've been recommending it, Perry. You should be proud of me. I've been recommending it as a Christmas gift to various people. If you've got someone...
It should be everybody's Christmas gift.
It should be literally everybody's Christmas gift.
For the world.
No, but seriously, if you have like a family member who you have concerns with navigating sort of technology and AI and deception right now, or if you have, friends that are curious, it doesn't have to be someone you're worried about. The book isn't like a rescue kit, but if anyone you know is curious about this kind of thing, it's a really great primer and a really great breakdown. Gives you a lot of razors and heuristics to think about the things you encounter in daily life. I really do recommend you get it. So that is my obviously biased testimonial, but it is genuine from the heart. I think it's a great choice.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So buy the book. This book is fake.com. Anything else? Is that it?
I think that's it.
All right, paperclips. Until next time, ignore all previous instructions and try and have yourself a good weekend. We'll catch you later.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the FAIK Files. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Tell your friends about the FAIK Files. It's a great way to let people know you love them. Oh, and check the show notes. There's cool stuff in there, like links to the articles we covered today. Also links to our Discord server where you can hang out with other cool people who have great taste in podcasts. I say impeccable taste. And you can also leave us a voicemail. Yeah! So on behalf of Perry and Mason, thanks for listening. And tune in next week for the FAIK Files, the show about AI with a misspelled name.